So we've all been witnessing in real time this new cycle that occurs with every gacha game where there's this very loud minority of sensitive individuals that feel the need to farm as much drama, slop, rage bait content as they possibly can. And I have to say, watching it this time with Arknights Endfield has probably been the most amusing and cathartic experience of my lifetime so far in the gacha space. And that's because Arknights Endfield is really such a good game that I can't help but like chuckle to myself a little bit every time I see these like weak attempts at farming drama-slop on the game. It's been absolutely cathartic to see. It's like watching this rinky-dink go-kart absolutely shatter itself into a million pieces upon the titanium wall of normal, calm people who are just completely immune to these weak attempts at riling up anger and tribalism and controversy. It has been a delight, I think, to witness watching people try their absolute best to blow up controversy only to be met with essentially apathy and getting clowned on. It's been kind of hilarious. It's literally that one meme of the person outside the group yelling at people, trying to get them to stop having fun. And everyone's just like, that's cool, bro, but we're just like having fun over here playing the game. And it's really, really hilarious to watch this futile effort to bring the game down take place in real time. And to clarify, I don't mean to say that Arknights Endfield and Hypergryph are immune to criticism. When it comes to, for example, arguing for more pools in general and a more generous pool economy or whatever it is, I'm always on board asking gacha companies to increase the amount of pools they're giving out. But this is where all the nuance is lost in the conversation. Because, look, this is the cycle that we see every time it comes to new gachas. So, 1, new gacha game comes out. 2, bad faith cave trolls emerge to farm drama-slop for views, or because they're just insecure that a new game is taking attention away from their chosen gacha game. Real fans of the new game feel extremely attacked and get anxious, and because of this, they feel like they have to defend the game from bad faith actors. And the result, I think, is a fan base that becomes overly sensitive to criticism and lashes out very aggressively anytime someone criticizes the game. And with that last part about becoming overly sensitive, I'm happy to say it's not something I'm seeing with Arknights Endfield so far. It feels like everyone is extremely secure because of how good the game is, and because everyone is actually having fun playing the game. They don't have time to pay attention to all that other nonsense. It's like you're being shouted at to not believe your eyes and ears when you can clearly see the high quality of the game and you're experiencing that it's fun, and you have people yelling at you trying to tell you that it's not fun and that you shouldn't, be enjoying. Like, to use as an example or a case study, I think this is the exact pattern we saw when Wuthering Waves came out, and the reverberations of that initial launch with Wuthering Waves has carried forward to today, where there's this small subset of the WoA fan base. I'm never going to generalize and say that it's everyone or even a majority. It's this extremely vocal minority that essentially became what they swore to destroy with the level of pure vitriol they bring to online discourse surrounding the game and the level of like brigading and harassment they partake in. And I think that was the result of very valid feelings of defensiveness while being dogpiled during WoA's launch. And like, sometimes you just have to call a spade a spade. I think it's undeniable at this point that a lot of the gacha tribalism slop comes from individuals from the WoA community. And again, I'm not generalizing and saying it's all people that play WoA or like all people that are part of WoA communities online. It's a very small subset of individuals who are particularly vitriolic and tribalistic. And if you're someone who's part of the WoA community, those individuals like do not reflect you, and you don't need to claim them. It's individuals who are exhibiting undisciplined and immature behavior. It's just that they're typically doing so on behalf of Wuthering Waves or on behalf of Wuthering Waves content creators, because a lot of this is fueled by content creators. Sometimes I feel like you just have to say it out loud sometimes. Like, people who heavily benefit from having the community feel constantly under attack because it drives us versus them narratives. And if you can convince people that the whole world is against them and the only safe space they have is like with you, then they'll never leave you, and most importantly, they'll never stop watching your videos. And that feeling of being under attack might sound silly when it's about video games, but it's actually an entirely normal human reaction. It's perfectly normal to feel that way when something you like or a community you're part of is getting slandered or dogpiled. But like with all emotions, the important part is how do we choose to act on them? Do we control the emotions, or do they control us, so to speak? And those valid emotions are very easily weaponized by bad faith content creators who honestly couldn't really care less about the games they defend or attack in the first place. They probably don't care that much at the end of the day, and their highest priority is really just how can they keep getting clicks on their videos rather than anything to do with the games or the game devs or the company or anything like that. So back to that pattern that I mentioned earlier, the reason reason this pattern is so frustrating to me, especially as someone who really loves Arknights Endfield, is because this pattern, it really completely derails any chance of positive, constructive criticism and aimed at making the game better. This is best illustrated with an example. So I want to like take the example of the bad faith actors trying to slam Arknights Endfield for not giving enough like gacha pools and calling it like the worst free-to-play gacha game in the history of gacha games that gives the like lowest amount of pools we've ever seen. And the thing is, if I do my best to remain a calm and rational actor, I'm always down to unite with my fellow gacha gamers and collectively bargain for a gacha company to give us more pools so that we can all get more characters and enjoy the game even more. However, those statements about Arknights Endfield being the worst free-to-play gacha game in history, dead on arrival garbage, the whole like, I log into such and such game and I have 25 pulls, I play Enfield for 15 hours, I don't even have a 10 pull, all that stuff. These are extreme statements which just like aren't true, and they're parroted by bad faith cave trolls who again most likely don't really care about the future of the game or improving the game. They're just trying to manipulate other people's emotions and inflame tribalism to set other people against each other so they get more views, or again they're just insecure because their game is getting less attention and they think another game might overshadow them. This puts people that actually care about the game and like the game in a difficult position because, you know, do we continue to criticize the game and also ask for more pulls so that we get more characters, which would essentially be endorsing the slander and vitriol of the bad faith actors? Or do we try to set the record straight and defend the game so that new players don't get turned off from the game due to all the misinformation? There's a reason that this is such an effective tactic in those that are trying to create us versus them narratives. I mean, this is the bread and butter of like manipulative political practices. You see it all the time going back thousands of years to the Romans, the Greeks. Humans have been taking advantage of these aspects of human psychology for centuries. But this is effective because for this issue regarding the gacha, for example, if this is the middle, calm, rational actors might just be a little tilted towards the negative side. The feedback we're giving are things like, you know, the gacha is kind of annoying, but so is every gacha system. And this one is set up to be very comparable to other mainstream gachas, perhaps even slightly better, probably even slightly better than other mainstream gachas. But that doesn't mean we don't want to like ask for more pulls, to like get more characters still. That's the feedback we're going to give to a gacha company. And the game itself, is absolutely amazing. We're having tons of fun with it. We just want to make sure we're getting enough pulls every patch to get a reasonable amount of character. Bad faith actors, they completely derail this conversation they look at this scale and they run all the way over to the extreme by saying things like, this is the worst free-to-play experience in the history of gacha games. This game needs to EOS. These developers are evil. So, we look at this and we're like, well, dang, now we're put in a lose-lose situation because you either join the extremists and effectively endorse them and end up engaging in misinformation, or you defend the game from misinformation, which dilutes and weakens your ability to provide constructive criticism towards the game, since anything negative you actually say about the game will be pounced on by bad faith actors who again aren't actually interested in making the game better, but they're really solely interested in winning an argument. So you feel like you're losing and simply giving ammunition to bad faith actors for them to use against you later on if you concede any points to them. Because yeah, I want to get more pulls, but I'm not going to give these cave trolls the satisfaction when they don't actually care about the game. They're just going to be jumping over to Silver Palace or Ananta or Neverness to Everness, whatever the next game is, to carry out this exact same cycle because they just want to farm views, or they're just insecure that people like the shiny new thing. They're afraid it'll steal the attention and fire away from their So if you defend the game and try to correct misinformation, you're essentially forced to take a moral stance, since opposing an extremist position will also be viewed relatively as an extremist position. Do y'all see how that works? Kind of. Per person who runs to take an extremist position forces this dynamic, because when the extremists are saying this is the worst gacha system and gacha pool economy in the history of all gacha games, then the instinctive reaction, even for calm, rational actors who are slightly in the middle or more moderate, will be to defend the gacha system as being not that bad, right? I've literally seen this happening in real time with the biggest creators, people who don't actually want to defend a gacha system in a gacha game. I see them, they have to keep trying to consciously circle back to make sure that people are aware they're not trying to defend a gacha system, but they're just trying to kind of set the record straight and give a fair take on it. And that's why it's so fascinating how extremists can completely derail any sort of conversation or debate or collective movement, because they're introducing extreme chaos to an ordered system, and then we're all just kind of expecting the system to function perfectly fine afterwards. But the thing is, we don't have to take a moral stance when discussing things like gacha games or whatever, because it's just very normal to give calm, rational feedback on things like this without tying one's morality to the game or the monetization or the company, because that's what it means to take a moral stance. It means to be tying one's self-worth, intelligence, morality to the actual entity that's being discussed. So it's not required, but the extremists, your average like drama-slop farmers, force people into taking moral stances because they take a moral stance where it's when it's uncalled for and not required, saying that it's the worst free-to-play system in the history of gacha, implying that the company is manipulative and is literally evil, and the individuals who work for the company are evil, who are trying to hurt you. Opposing a moral stance like that in any way means that you are also pressured to take a moral stance by definition. Because if someone's saying that something is evil and you're saying that something is not evil, it's like both of you are having to put your morality on the line. So if someone is making a moral claim, the only way to counter it is with another moral claim. And this, in essence, is one of the driving factors behind why people become so parasocially attached to gacha games and developers and content creators, because they have wrapped their morality, their intelligence, their self-worth in these things. That's why when other games, there's a situation with Wuthering Waves 3.1 where they have a spending event. So when other games have a spending event, or when Arknights Endfield gacha system is like a little lacking or not as satisfying, it's the worst thing in the world. And these companies are evil entities that are trying to hurt you. But when it's Wuthering Waves that has a spending event, then, it's not that bad. It's just a bonus for whales. No one actually gets pressure to spend on spending events anyway. It's actually Hoyoverse's fault, because Kuro had to put his spending event in their game, because Hoyoverse is the market leaders and theirs was so successful that Kuro would be foolish for not doing the same thing. You see, because to admit that a company is doing something bad would feel like admitting that you are stupid and foolish and morally wrong for supporting them and praising them in the past for being like these paragons of the industry, when they are in fact essentially just like any other gacha company who's trying to make money, owned by Tencent, one of the biggest gaming companies in the world. The important thing is you don't need to feel that way about yourself for acknowledging that a company is doing something that's a little bad or slimy, even if it's about devs that you almost always usually like and a game that you like. There's no need to tie your moral value and intelligence to a billion-dollar corporation, even if they do something scummy or unlikable. That's not a reflection of you as an individual, even if you like their product. To continue the Wuthering Waves example, I think this is one of the greatest tragedies regarding Wuthering Waves, because I think the defensiveness of those vocal individuals, they started to drown out legitimate criticisms towards the game. I've seen several instances of YouTube channels where you can literally trace through their videos where they'll make a video with criticism towards Wuthering Waves or sharing their opinion about something, but then a mob of very sensitive people, and it's, very small amount of people in the grand scheme of things. Again, I'm never ever going to generalize any group of people or community as being a certain way. It's a very small amount of individuals that are being riled up, but essentially these channels, they would make a video with criticisms towards WUA, and then this mob would completely rake them over the coals in the comments of not only that video, but of like future videos, and they would just get completely torn apart and dogpiled to the point where they need to release a follow-up apology/clarification video where they have to apologize for getting some small detail incorrect, which was then used to discredit their entire reputation, or because they just didn't explain themselves properly or whatever it is. They then proceed to just, and then what happens is they proceed to never make a Wuthering Waves video again, because it was probably such a miserable experience that they just don't want to deal with it again. So I think legitimate criticisms get smothered in favor of echo chambers where people are afraid to go against the status quo because they've seen what happens to people that do go against the status quo. And that's just generally bad for the long-term health of a game or any community, honestly, because it results in a combination of brain drain of people leaving who would want to discuss those things, and then also results in echo chambers. And I'm sure this happens for other games too. I'm sure it happens for every sort of community. I've just seen the Wuthering Waves example is just very prominent that I think a lot of people have seen. There's going to be undisciplined and immature individuals in every single community that are doing bad things. Like, individuals cannot be used to represent the whole, like, ever. So just keep that in mind. Okay. So earlier I said that we'd be in a lose-lose situation regarding the bad faith actors, but there actually is a way to win, I think. That's literally by following this meme that I mentioned earlier, where, if tribalism slop is essentially a raging fire, then the way you defeat it or win is by depriving it of oxygen. And I'm not actually just saying, a lot of times you'll hear just unplug completely and just pretend it doesn't exist, because I think that's actually unrealistic, since it's inevitable that all of this really loud shouting becomes a part of the public subconscious. So you kind of just can't pretend that it doesn't exist when most people are going to be aware of it anyway, and it's going to be, reaching people anyway. I think the way you deprive it of oxygen is by not letting the behavior of the gacha tribalists control your own actions and affect you know, what you choose to do. So this means like how we actually engage with drama-slop and how we let it affect our own conversations that we want to have around the game. So obviously the, you know, important thing is just would be not to watch drama-slop videos in the first place. Don't let them stress you out and affect your mental and your emotions and your actions, because they want to create this negative feedback loop where you get essentially stressed out from feeling attacked. So you keep watching their stuff, because the way the human brain works is that if you're under attack, but then you stop watching the stuff and try and unplug, then it feels like you're retreating from the conversation, and it feels like a loss, because it feels like you're just conceding all of those points to them and all of that space to them by not engaging. So that's how it feels. But the best thing you can do is not watch the videos. Don't feel like it's a loss by not engaging with bad faith actors, because the reality is that you lose by engaging with them in the first place, because they're never going to be interested in having a conversation and having any sort of dialogue or hearing other sides. All they're interested in is molding the narrative and winning, essentially. So when you see rage bait titles and thumbnails, best thing you can do is just to quickly block the channel, click like not interested or whatever it is, because of the way like algorithms work. It's all down to watch time and clicks. You know, if a video shows up on your feed, it's this metric called click-through rate, and by not clicking on it, you hurt that metric, and then by not watching the video, you also hurt watch time. You know, that's how you basically do your part. And ultimately, I think the best thing to do is just stick to our own conversations about the game and not let drama-slop affect how we engage or interact with the game, whether we want to give constructive criticism about things like gacha income or story writing or whatever. And likewise, if you want to glaze the game with reckless abandon, you're free to do that. I also think that involves finding a community of like-minded people in regards to foundational values and not just subjective opinions, because the word community gets used very loosely these days. Like anyone who plays the same game or reads the same subreddit is a community. But real communities are built on things like mutual respect and trust and safety, and like expressing differing viewpoints and being heard, and then hearing other people. Things like that are what make a community. Things that are foundational moral values, rather than just whether you love this game and this company and you hate that game and that company. If your induction into a community is reliant on you hating some other group of people, then you're not really part of a community, you're part of a mob. And if you're in a group where you know you'd be relentlessly bullied and outcasted if you were to simply express that you enjoy like Genshin Impact or HSR, for example, then again, that's not a community, that's just a group of insecure bullies. And the same goes for, of course, Wuthering Waves or Arknights Endfield, whatever it is, right? Only truly like insecure bullies seek to outcast people, creating in and out groups based on completely arbitrary criteria, using arbitrary and trivial things to separate people and make people hate each other. So yeah, I hope that all this information and discussion about tribalism can help the community at large remain disciplined in the face of drama-slop and not let ourselves get swung to the opposite extreme in the face of people who just want to rile everyone up and provoke extreme reactions. I'm pretty happy, honestly, with how Arknights Endfield has been so far. It's genuinely wholesome that everyone seems too preoccupied just playing and enjoying the game to really give any oxygen to the rage bait. But let me know in the comments if y'all have any thoughts on this, or if you disagreed with anything I said, or, you know, I like having conversations with y'all in the comments. And like and subscribe if you liked the video. It does help the channel out. Okay, so I'll see you on the next one. Okay, keep talking about Arknights Endfield. Thank you for watching. All right, peace.